welcome to Slayerfest 98. I'm your host, Ian Carlos Crawford, and joining me to discuss the 25th anniversary of the Buffy Season 2 episode School Hard, I have writer and author of Bloody Fool for Love,
Will Ritter.
And we have from NBC's The Voice and co-producer and creator of Kat Robichaux's Misfit Cabaret,
Kat Robichaud.
Hi.
Hi.
Hey.
I'm so glad to have you both here. Before we get into the episode, though, I'd love to hear your Buffy origins. Kat, would you like to go first?
Yes, and I will try and make it short. Okay, so I co-produce and write and star in a musical variety show based in the Bay Area, San Francisco, called Kat Robichaux's Misfit Cabaret. And we are a musical variety show. We're kind of like a framed narrative, like a variety show within a musical or a musical within a variety show. And each one is themed. We've been doing this. Been doing this show for like 7 years, and I write a handful of brand new shows each year. We're coming up on our 5th original Halloween show that we've ever done. And my partner, Jordan Nathan, and I were trying to decide, okay, what's the theme we're going to do this year? And we both were like, we've never tackled vampires before. Why don't we just do like a whole vampire show? Well, our show leans heavily on pop culture references. And so usually what I'll do is, my research, I'll watch a ton of movies and just make sure I'm really well-versed in the genre, the theme that we're doing. And I know that so many of our fans are really big Buffy the Vampire fans. And admittedly, I had never watched a show. I'd grown up, I'm an 80s baby, so I grew up like watching the movie and I liked the movie, but I'd never seen the show. So I went on Facebook and I was like, hey, everybody, I'm going to start watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And people freaked out and they were like, oh my God, we're so excited that you're getting into this. This is incredible. But you also have to watch Angel at the same time. And you have to watch it in this specific order. And I was like, all right, you're on. I'm doing it. And I will admit, the first season, I was kind of confused. I hit up my friend Dave, who's one of my favorite people. He's a puppeteer. He works with us all the time. He's got a puppeteer group called Shadow Circus Creature Theater. And I knew he was a really big fan of Buffy. And I was like, wait a minute, this isn't all vampires? She's fighting like a monster a week? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, well, I don't know. And he's like, just get past the first season, I promise. I'm like, all right. So I'm watching it and I get to season 2. And then I get to the episode that we're going to be discussing today. And I was like, oh, no. Oh, no. And I fell head over heels in love with Spike. And that's when I super, super, super got into the show and got completely obsessed with it, to the point where I watched all of 7 seasons of Buffy, all 5 seasons of Angel within 1 month. And was sobbing.
Wait, within 1 month?
Within 1 month.
Holy shit, I'm impressed.
I was staying up until like 4 a.m. On my iPhone, like with my headphones in. I couldn't because, well, here's the thing. I really enjoy a lot of Angel. I do. But like, it's difficult. Well, the first 2 seasons were great. And then, but anyway, so I'm watching Angel, and I'm looking at the list and I'm like, okay, if I just watch 2 more episodes of Angel, then I can get back to watching Buffy. And at the last season of Buffy, I am so glad I was alone in my apartment because I just, I ugly sobbed for hours. It was horrible. And then I couldn't deal with it being gone. I watched season 5 of Angel, but I wasn't super satisfied with that. And then I have there's a friend who has all of the comics. So she gave me her 2 giant tubs of comics. I read all of that. And then did something I've never done before. I got into fanfic. I've never read fanfic before.
Oh my God, I love that.
Oh my God.
This is your fanfic origin story too.
Crazy. I found my friend told me about Elysian Fields. And so I started reading. And so I've probably read like well over 50. It's the only thing I read now. I actually took a break to read your book, Will. And it's terrible.
Which is also fanfic, just, paid for by the people who own the main fiction.
I love it all so much. And so, the end of my origin story, I'm still, there's so much there's so much to just eat up. Then it doesn't ever get old. It's so much fun.
Yeah.
But so I'm like, okay, how am I going to incorporate Buffy into the show? And I'm like, I'm going to be Spike. I'm going to do Spike drag. I'm going to write a song I wrote it and I've already recorded, called Dirty Little Secret. And then I'm going to hire my friend who's a burlesque performer, but is also a professional stunt coordinator.
Oh.
And she's going to be Buffy and I'm going to be Spike. And we are going to do a full out fight choreography. And it's going to be like this whole 10-minute thing. And it's just going to be amazing. I'm going to sing Rest in Peace. I'm going to oh God. So I'm just so excited, but I've been trying to learn how to do the kip up, because I know that like all the main actors in Buffy were able to do the kip up. So I've been like beating myself up out of the lake, like every single day. I've got friends who are like, you need to let your muscles rest. I'm like, but I haven't been able to do it yet. So anyway,
Wait, what is the kip up?
It's when you're laying on your back and you kick to standing.
Oh, okay. Yes. Okay. Yeah, they do
really
that
hard. So
to be fair, in some of I can tell from the camera work, some of them probably weren't that good at it, but they made it look like they could do it.
Yeah. But I don't have that. It's live theater, so it's gonna be awesome. So, in conclusion, October 7th through the 22nd at the Alcazar Theater in San Francisco. If you want to see me fall on my ass as Spike, please come.
That sounds amazing.
That does. That's so fun that you get to like incorporate shit you love and just like do it, like make it your show. That's so fun.
I mean, it's what y'all are doing, right? It's like you get to like live out your fantasies and like talk about stuff that you really love. And
I do say that Slayerfest, like, I'm like, well, I expanded, and people are always like, well, how'd you decide? I'm like, it's just stuff I like. That's what I expanded into, like other stuff I like.
Yeah.
Will, what is your Buffy origin?
I mean, a little less exciting than that. I'm not, putting on musicals and kipping into it. I back when it was on the air originally, back when I was in high school, and at the right age to think these, cool, edgy high school characters were my, role model kind of types. I was out, off and on into it. It was one of those. I was a bigger nerd, so I was like watching Star Trek most of the time. But so like I got a little into it, and I like fantasy. That was kind of my genre, but not deep dive. Like I would watch. It was nice that it was Monster Week style, because I could watch an episode and enjoy it on its own, but never really got the full arcs and character growth. It was just kind of, here was a fun thing. And so it wasn't until ages later when it was on streaming. I don't remember what it was, Netflix or whatever had it first.
I think it was Netflix. Yeah.
Yeah. Somebody mentioned like, oh, this is on. I loved it so much, and you should get into it. And so I did finally get back into it that way, and did the full watch in ways that you couldn't do as easily back when it was originally on. Like you could only literally like you watch an episode, and then like, I don't know, Simpsons would be on or whatever. Like you didn't get the choice to binge. So seeing it one after the other, and seeing that like the swell of the character arcs and things like that was really made it a lot easier to get hooked. And then you get to things like one of my favorite episodes is like, the musical episode, the Once More with Feeling, where you get the like, it's ridiculous and it's like, it's stupid, and yet it's so good. And even the little nuance, like a tiny one-off line will tell you so much about a character, because they were connecting them to all of their arcs at that point. So yeah, I got into it then, and then didn't love Angel as much, mostly because even on the main show, Angel was kind of my least favorite, because he was so very broody. He was the very like Anne Rice vampire that evolved eventually to being the Edward vampire for Twilight.
Right? Exactly.
And so like, whatever, I don't want to watch this guy. And like Cordelia was annoying anyway, so like whatever. And then going, I know, sacrilege. But then what I did finally, like when I got approached to do a Buffy book, I went back and did my rewatch, and I was like, okay, I've got to give Angel more of a try. And by that point, I had kind of done a turnaround. Like I love Boreanaz as an actor. And I'd seen him on Bones more and gotten to love him a little bit more. And so going back and watching him in Angel, I was able to appreciate him more. And Cordelia, I've kind of flipped at this point. Like I used to be all about Buffy and Willow were like they were the cool ones. And I've kind of flipped. Like they gave Cordelia some depth in Angel. Like she actually, she was still a spoiled brat, but she was a spoiled brat with character. And so like I was able to appreciate it more. Plus they have the puppet episode in Angel, which is amazing.
So good.
I do love that episode. Yeah, it's funny. We've been going through. So Kat, it's funny that you said you do like seasons 1 and 2, because I think season 1 of Angel is like truly a like chore. But I think it gets better as it goes. Like I think seasons 3 and 5 are the best seasons of Angel.
Really?
Yeah, I love
Okay.
I love Cordelia in season 3 so much because it feels like in season 1 we're still going back and forth. Sometimes they're still going back to like she's just saying mean things.
Right.
But I think Charisma Carpenter and James Marsters both have
Mhm.
this like charm, but also problem where they have chemistry with like any person they share a scene with.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. So like either of them could have been paired off with like any character and I would have bought it because I think both of them are like very good
Yeah.
at being charming. Visiting Angel now, season 1, I'm like, oh shit, it is there because her and Angel do get, and just as friends, but I love like close friends to then like falling in love. That's like the romance trope I like.
Yeah.
And like the close friendness, you buy it almost immediately. Like they have a lot of scenes where it's like, you know, after Doyle dies, when she's like, hey, you don't have to be that person with me. Like, I am your friend. Talk to me about your grief.
Mhm.
And that's like immediately giving her more depth and also showing like she's not trying to like get in his pants or fuck him at that point. She's just like, hey, you're my friend. I care about you. Talk to me about your grief.
Yeah.
And I think that's like really important for later on for buying their, I mean, it doesn't happen and it drives me nuts, but like their like their romance.
Terrible. Such a letdown.
Right. I know. It's funny when I watched the show when it was on air, because I didn't fully watch Angel all the time, I like, because for me, I'm not big on like shipping. Like I don't really care. But I like both Spike and Angel for Buffy. And in my brain, neither of them were allowed to love anyone else ever. And so like, even though by the time him and Cordelia, like we've mostly gotten to Buffy and Spike already, I still in my brain was like, but no, Angel has to stay in love with Buffy forever. He can't like anyone else.
It's his thing.
That irritated me. Like that was I felt the betrayal from like, okay, so Angel has his own show. He's living his own life. He has a son. He does all of this crazy stuff. And then when he comes back at the end of season 7 on Buffy, the audacity of him. You know what I mean?
See, I always feel like, I don't know. I like that. I do like it, even though I'm like all in on her and Spike at that point. I do like it just because like, what do you think about it? I forget.
No.
We like forget that they're like 20. So I'm like,
I know.
That makes sense. She wouldn't be able to pick between like the two men she loves the most. Like, all right, it's not like it's Riley coming in and she's kissing him.
No, right. And I am not. Well, I'm not a fan of Riley. I'm definitely not a fan of Riley. It was like he needs to leave. He has overstayed his welcome on this show. It's
funny because season 4, I never liked him, but going through it for the podcast, I was like, okay, when they first introduce him, I see the charm because it's like, he's just like this like kind of dopey, almost himbo dude who's like very nice. And sure. I do think that my defense of him and Kennedy both is that there's nothing wrong with a hot rebound. It doesn't have to be forever love. And like, that's how I think of both of them as like, all right, Willow wanted to like have like fuck at the end of the world. Okay. And Kennedy was hot. Kennedy was like there and very obviously wanted her. So like, sure. Do I think they're better than Willow and Tara? No, of course not. But that's how I feel about Riley, where it's like, she was getting over Angel. He was like boring. But then in season 5, I like actively dislike him because it's like, you're being an asshole and her mother is dying. Like,
oh, he's the worst.
Yeah.
He's the worst. And that, oh my God. It's just like, when he at the end of I think it's Pangs at the end of that episode when she's like, you have a lot to learn about women. He goes, you're gonna teach me. No woman wants to hear that ever. Gross.
Yeah.
Please stop.
But okay, we are here to talk about School Hard.
Yeah.
Which revisiting, this is an episode that I do forget is very good. Like I like it's a plot we don't get again, but I like them going into like, ooh, they're invading the school and I like all the characters having to split up and like, so I'm curious, just overall thoughts, Will, how do you feel about this episode when revisiting it?
It's really, this is one that I did watch several times when I was going into writing for Spike, because it's one of his, it's his first debut. It's important. Yeah. But I was watching it and some of his much later ones, like into season 5, especially. Mm. And it's hard because it's such an important episode. It's got so many cornerstone introductions. It's got some of my favorite one-liners. Mm-hmm. But compared to the later stuff, it's just technically not as good. You've got like his fangs in the very first scene. I'm just cringing because they don't fit his face. Like they were not planning on using James Marsters as much as they wound up using him. And so you could tell like this was the guy they were plugging in for the Monster of the Week for, this season or whatever. And whatever, throw some makeup on him, give him some fangs, let him do his lines. And so it's just they weren't putting as much time into it. And they're just little, there's things that they wind up needing to retcon later that as I'm watching it, I'm like, it's good, and there's things in it that I really love, and like we'll get in later talking about fave scene and things like that. Like there's moments in it that are some of my favorite moments in the series, but as a whole, it was hard because I was watching it back and forth with some of my actual favorite episodes, and it doesn't hold up in some ways. So yeah, I'll get into that more when we get into details.
All right, All right, Kat, I'm curious, what did you think revisiting it?
Well, I agree with Will. It is not my favorite Spike episode, but it is a really good episode.
Yeah.
And what I wrote was Spike's first episode is perfectly book-ended with his two main vices, destruction and women. His entrance, Spike has so many entrances in this first episode. His first entrance when he crashes into the sign, iconic, right?
I love that, yes.
So good. His second entrance with Drew is iconic and scary.
Yeah.
And then his third entrance with Buffy, where he's the like you were saying, Will, those lines, what happens Saturday? I kill you. It's just so good. And it's one of those another thing that really drew me to Buffy, and as I watched the episodes, I realized this isn't just another show. There's something very special about this series, is how they would end episodes. Like there would be some kind of twist or quirk, right? Yeah. And I remember, because I don't even know, I the first time I watched the show was March. And since then, I've gone on many, many journeys. And I can't even remember who said it first, but they were talking about how we all thought that we were going to be saddled with the Anointed One, right? Who was universally regarded as a boring character.
Right. Which is too bad because it's such a nice detail to have this like kid vampire is like so subtly tragic. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's boring, just it was boring, and then Spike comes in and just nope, sorry, I'm taking over. It was just so brilliant. The only thing I liked about the Anointed One, honestly, is when Spike first enters, you can watch the Anointed. He is so into it. He is his jaw is on the floor. He's just like, who is this guy? He is all about it. It's hilarious.
And anyway. A thing I do appreciate about, not that I like the Anointed One, but I appreciate their dedication to continuity, because realistically, they didn't need to have, right? They could have just never shown him again after season 1 and it would have been fine. Because he didn't really do anything, but I appreciate they're well, we did say he was a big bad. We need to resolve that.
Yeah.
Right.
And I do appreciate the show does that a lot, where they're they stick to continuity. And I think that's one of the things that I one of seeing a genre show that would have characters that weave in and out. And Will, you mentioned Star Trek. I was also a big Star Trek kid. And Star Trek so often would have a character you're supposed to care about that we never see again.
Yep.
Or in one episode. And Doctor Who does the same thing. And I like that Buffy, while it still would do that, but it most of the time, a character like Amy, she's only in a handful of episodes, but they still who she is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Harmony, I didn't realize how few episodes she is in of the first 3 seasons until I went through it for the podcast. In my brain, it was oh yeah, she's always with Cordelia, but she's only in 2 or 3 episodes a season until she becomes a vampire.
Right.
And I think that's really smart writing. To be yeah, you were you don't need to be paying attention, but if you do, it's a fun payoff, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, they're part of the world, even if you're not
Right.
zooming in on them.
Right, yeah. So we open on Principal Snyder, which I don't know how either of you feel, but like he is maybe my favorite character to hate
I
on the
love it.
show,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right?
Fair.
Like he is such a good actor as Snyder.
Yes.
And like his scenes are just like it's fun to hate him, right? It just is.
Yeah, he's such a good character actor.
He's phenomenal. But it's such a massive overreach. Like, I'm watching it and I'm like, what has Buffy done?
Right.
He can really nail her on. This is just, it's really, it's like, what is his problem?
I think someone said this in our season premiere record. They're like, what is his beef with this 16-year-old?
Seriously. Or like,
you do get the hints
children.
in this that he knows more than he's letting on.
Yeah.
You get to the end and he's like, "Oh, we can't tell them the truth."
Right.
But also, like at the same time, like you could be covering for her on purpose because you know what's happening, but instead you're just being a dick about it.
Yeah.
And from like working in a school, like going back and rewatching this, I was watching it with my wife, and she's like, she also works in a school. She's a teacher. She's like, wait a minute. So they're putting kids who assaulted a teacher with pruning shears and burnt down a building in charge of organizing and running a school function for parents. Like,
Yeah.
even when you get the A plus, like overachiever leadership students, they still need a massive amount of oversight if they're going to organize something the parents are going to see. Like, why would you put your degenerates who you're thinking of kicking out of school in charge of something that is supposed to be the face of the school?
Right.
Yeah.
And also,
It's
who's
ridiculous.
paying for it?
Right? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so we meet I was talking about how good the show is about, but we meet Sheila, who is
It's the worst. I love her. She's so bad.
I wrote that she's crying out for help.
Yep.
But it is weird because, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but Buffy doesn't even stake her, right? She just runs off.
Axes her.
Does she get axed?
Yeah, she gets axed.
Okay,
Yeah.
she does. Okay. I literally I was just telling Will how I just finished the episode, and I was like, wait, do I remember if she got? But like,
Right.
it's weird that like I kind of that would have been a fun character to like pop up every once in a while as like
Sure.
she's doing something, Buffy has to fight her. But so we meet Sheila. She is the other bad girl, quote unquote, at school. Well, she actually is. Buffy is not.
Right.
Mhm.
They both have to like do the decorations and set up everything for the upcoming parent teacher night. And I do like we then cut to the Scoobies and it's like Willow and Xander telling Buffy how bad Sheila is. Like they say, like, that's her boyfriend she can bring home to mom.
Right.
Meat pie.
Yeah. And I do like when Xander's like, what is he like? Oh, nothing could go wrong. And they're like, oh my God, that's the ultimate jinx. Now something will go wrong. And it does.
Cut Spike entrance. Yeah.
That's so right.
Yeah. And so, yes, we cut to the Spike entrance, which I fucking love. I think it's like such a good entrance. And I don't know, like, the show's very good with entrances, but what y'all said earlier, he does get like 3 very good entrances. This one's
Right.
still my favorite though, because I love that he crashes a car over the sign. I love that he lights a cigarette and is like, home sweet home. Now this is my new home. It's such a good intro for a character that they didn't know would be as important as he would become, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then so we cut to post credits. Vampires and the Anointed One are discussing the Saint Vigius. Will, you have written in this universe. The only thing I kept thinking was, okay, but also what happened on Saint Vigius? Like, wouldn't something have still happened that night?
Right. Yeah. You think I like to think that maybe there's like other vampires in other places near other hellmouths that are maybe having cool adventures right now. But yeah, this Saint Vigius night gets wasted completely. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I was like, wait a second, I mean, it's still happening, and they said that was a big deal, but whatever.
Right. Yeah.
So discussing that, and then I liked it when the one vampire says, like, oh, it's like the crucifixion. I would know, I was there. And
Right. If every vampire who claimed he was at the crucifixion had actually been there, it'd be like Woodstock.
Yeah. And I love that's kind of like something that sticks in the universe, right? Like vampires pretending or like puffing up their ego. And I mean, we even learned that about Spike, right? Like this is the episode where Giles like, ooh, he killed them with a railroad spike. And later on we learn it was his poetry.
Little baby.
And I think he's making fun of him for bragging about being somewhere, and in the same breath continues to say, "Oh, and I was at Woodstock." Like he starts bragging about having been there and gotten high off of a hippie that he ate. Yeah.
Which I don't. Do either of you watch What We Do in the Shadows?
Oh, yeah,
yes,
totally.
yes.
That's another thing I had to watch for my show.
I was thinking that like watching it this time made me think of the season 1 episode where he's like, we
I'm
drank
a
like,
wizard.
yeah, the drug blood. I love that episode.
And,
I
yeah.
I am constantly wanting. I think James Marsters and Juliet Landau really should make
God.
like have like a one-off episode or even recurring. Because they would fit so well as like just have them play Spike and Drusilla, but like call them something else. Like
Right, yeah.
And I actually, when I had Juliet Landau on the podcast, she said, I want to write to that show because I think I could guest on that show. And I was like, you should.
Right. That would be a fan favorite. Oh, for sure.
That would be amazing.
Yeah. But so this whole Kat, speak about this because this is also a very good Spike entrance. It is. What do you think about it?
Well, first of all, I saw parallels between this scene and the scene in Jaws when they're having the town meeting and Quint comes in and scratches his nails on the blackboard because he literally says, he says, I'll do you Slayer for you, right? And Quint is very much like, I'll catch the shock for you.
Yeah.
It's everything. I love the little turn that they do. I think it's really interesting the choices that they made when they show their vamp faces and when they don't. Because like when Spike, we don't see Spike's human face until Drew enters. We first meet him as a super rough looking vampire. Bless James Marsters for acting through those teeth. But so you don't see him soften until Drew walks in, and he immediately and it's also you realize this is a very different vampire because he's a gentleman. He's taking his coat off for her. He's worshiping her. And you were saying that like Spike and Angel don't get to love anybody but Buffy, but Spike loved Drew for a really long time. And I was just thinking the other day about the devastation of losing Drew. I mean, he lost her once to, there's the whole...
Right.
Yeah, love triangle.
That's the other audacious stuff that makes me really angry. Like, once you realize what a complete dick Angel was as Angelus, and then you get into the whole thing of like, okay, but Spike made all of these changes and became a better person without a soul. Yeah. And Angel loves to... This is a little bit later in the episode, but Angel is hiding the knowledge that he has about Spike because it's too much a reveal about the person that he used to be, that he doesn't want anybody to know about the monster that he was, because every time he looks at Spike, it's a mirror. Yeah. And that's why he hates Spike so much. It's just a reminder of what a monster he was.
Yeah.
It's funny that you mentioned like, cause I very much, he does love Drusilla. Like he loves her. And I like, in a way, Darla and Angelus loved each other, but like in a different, more like evil, sinister, like we like killing people together and fucking, but like Spike and Drusilla was that plus actual love, I do think.
Totally.
Well,
totally.
It gets into what makes Spike Spike is because he's a Romeo. Like he's absolutely the like romantic to a toxic degree, and it's like what we see whenever people become turned is we see that only their negative traits survive into their like soulless version. So like his mother was sweet and loved him, and when he turns his mother, she's this awful, horrible person because the nice parts of her don't survive. And so the fact that when he got turned by Juliet, or when he gets turned by Drew, we see that, who I guess is kind of his Juliet. We see that like his toxic romantic self, the version of him that has to be like 100% head over heels in love with someone, even if it's bad, that part of him survives. And so he still stays absolutely a romantic with Drew. And then Drew kind of becomes his Rosalind as he then eventually becomes head over heels in love with Buffy. So that part of him, he can't not be a romantic because it's one of the few parts of his original personality that absolutely stays even as he becomes a monster.
I love that. I've never thought about it that way.
Yeah, I really, you must have written us a book about Spike.
A little bit, yeah.
And it's funny. So Kat, I know you've been binging, so I might be repeating myself, but I don't know if you listened to our interview with James Marsters.
Of course I did.
I love that he said that he always played Spike with a soul, that he was like, he said something like, I cheated a little. I always played him with a little bit of a soul. And like, I think that's what makes him like, sure, he can say it's cheating, but like that's what makes Spike more interesting, right?
Yep.
Is that we do see that even though him and Drusilla are like legit murderers, he does love her and care for her.
Yeah.
And like even going into season 5, when we get that flashback of their breakup, I do think even though she's right and he was in love with Buffy by then, he was still heartbroken that Drew dumped him.
Oh, yeah,
right?
he was devastated.
Or a chaos demon, no less.
Yes,
he was in denial.
Right. Yeah, he was in denial, but like I still believe like that was still heartbreaking. You know what I mean? It was still heartbreaking, even though he was in love with someone else. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's like such interesting character work. Also, I mean, we were talking a lot about James Marsters. Juliet Landau is also very fucking good, right?
So good. Both of them are fire in this episode.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Like the like creepy lullaby music that plays when she enters, and the way that like we just saw Spike being like bragging and like puffy chest, like quote unquote manly man. But then when Drusilla comes, he softens and he's like, "Oh, my love, what are you doing?" And she's like, "Will you kill her? Like, do you do it for Princess?" And he's like, "Of course." And like, they are so good together. Like
so good.
And she doesn't need the vampire makeup for her first entrance to be subtly horrifying. No. She's so good.
She's a ghost.
Yeah.
It really is like this like Victorian like spirit that enters and it's just like she's so good. And like
I love Juliet Landau.
I would never erase this, but if we only got Spike as a villain and it was like him and Drusilla, like that is still fucking interesting. Like that is still enjoyable to watch, right?
Yeah.
And I remember in like season 4 being like, oh, I would like kind of miss Drusilla, but then once he had the chemistry with Buffy and even the rest of the Scoobies, it was like, okay, wait, that is fun to watch too.
Yeah.
Will, do you want to mention some of the stuff he does say that does come to fruition later?
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of different things that come out. I mean, early on, you've got him sort of talking about, little references that will come back in. So like, you almost got killed in Prague and things like that they tie back into. We do get, I don't know, early on in this episode, we get little like moments of him with Drusilla talking about like, her getting her strength back and things like that are going to come through. But then we also get the things that they need to retcon later on, like you mentioned William the Bloody got his name for torturing victims with railroad spikes. And then we learn that it's really because he was a bloody awful poet. We get Giles mentions that he's barely 200, which they also retcon. He's not 200 yet, based
like
on the official time. Yeah, 140 if you count his human years, about 120 if you count just his vampire time. And then of course the angel being his sire, which they retcon to include Drusilla as the in between there.
Do you think they did that so it like wasn't too gay back then?
I don't know. Like,
right?
It would have been fun to see. I like the story of Drusilla needing a pet. I like that, like her needing somebody to make up for Angel still being more obsessed with Darla, which makes good sense. So I like the way they went with it. I think, again, you can have all these throwaway lines if you're only planning on using them for a dozen episodes. It gets a lot harder once he's established like a main.
Right. Yeah. And then he does mention he killed Slayers.
Yes. Yeah. And you never get the name of the Slayer that he kills in Beijing on screen. They do eventually give her a name in the, I think, comics later on.
Yeah.
But she's never named, but it's just this offhand, oh yeah, I've killed a few, and just offhanded little remarks.
So we get another funny cut here where he says something like, about that Slayer, is she tough? Yeah. And then we cut to Buffy brushing her hair saying, ow. It's so
they were
good.
good at the transitions. The show was always good at transitions like that.
Yeah, very good. Yeah. I love shit like that. And then we get Joyce giving her a talk about like, I know. Kat, what do you give me your hot takes about this?
Yeah.
I mean, I learned a long time ago that if you really want to get somebody's attention and make them, feel bad, you don't say, I'm not angry, I'm disappointed. So I just like, why is her mom so harsh?
Right?
Like, my God.
I love that. So like from a storytelling perspective, the whole first season, basically all you get of Joyce is her being naggy mom that they have to get around. And this is the episode that later on we'll finally see that turn around. So I get from a storytelling perspective, they had to hammer it hard early on with her being obnoxiously naggy.
But like, do you remember the movie? Her mom was like an airhead that didn't give a crap about her.
Right. Yeah.
And
I did like the movie too.
I did too. I mean, it's super not as good as the show.
No.
But I mean, come on, Paul Rubens with the
that long death. Yeah,
so good. I don't know what Joyce's problem is. She's like coming down way too hard on Buffy. Buffy's trying so hard to be a good daughter. And then I love the line about what can you really tell about somebody from test results? Like nothing. Right. Honestly,
they won't
nothing.
be going out at night.
Yep, pretty much. Yeah.
The early. It's funny because my mom is one that got me into Buffy. And she's 76. She's not the like demographic. She was never the demographic. But like my mom always hated that Joyce was so mean to Buffy. And like, listen, a Puerto Rican will hold a grudge. And my mom never forgave Buffy's mother.
Right.
Like even when like we'll talk about it now, she'll be like, oh, I never liked that mother. She kicked her out of her house.
Right.
But so then we cut to the next day at school. Sheila's ditched. She's not helping Buffy do the paint for the signs.
Yeah. Which again, it's a ridiculous premise.
Yeah, it just is. Giles and Jenny walk in. They talk about the St. Vigius coming up.
This scene drives me crazy, by the way.
All right, hit me. Why?
Because just first of all, I'm so sorry, but I think that Giles and Jenny have zero chemistry together. I'm so sorry. The other thing is,
I loved him having a sweet little romance, though.
I did too. But I mean, she's just anyway. The thing that irritates me about this scene is it looks like it is so obvious that they are walking to their mark.
Right.
It is so. Watch it. They enter. They're standing behind. And then they come forward and they go to a mark and then they deliver a line. And it's like a bad school play. Right. And it's so weird for the show because they don't have that problem.
Right.
And it's just such a stilted moment of like, this is so weird the way that they've staged this. And I can't, and every time I've watched the episode probably like 5 or 6 times at this point, and every time that stops me and takes me out of the scene.
Yeah, earlier we have the scene, such amazing chemistry as we were talking about between Spike and Drew, but we get that one moment where Spike puts his hand on her heart, and it wasn't in frame for him to do that, and so they have him like weirdly lifting his hand up and kind of around her shoulder.
I love that,
and it's like you can tell the only reason that he would do it that way is so that you could see it happening. Like it's just in a shot. So there are moments like that, and then later on you'll get like Cordelia supposedly whittling spikes in the least convincing way. So yeah, there are a few moments like this where I get the staging is visibly staging.
It's so weird.
But so they're talking about that, and this is when early season Giles, it's like, but I love the development. I love seeing how he's more, this is when he's still Giles. Like, slaying is your job, and like more harder on her. And it's so funny because, right, like halfway through the season is when he immediately becomes her father. Like,
he's so sweet, yeah.
You know what, like 5, maybe 10 episodes from now, he like gives her that like very fucking fantastic like dad speech where he's like, you want judgment from me, you're not gonna get it. Like,
and even by the end of this episode, you'll get him like like his defensive, she's my slayer, I need to go protect her moment kicks in. Yeah.
And I like seeing that development because I do think it like makes sense because to him it was a job, but then it becomes like he does have this like fatherly love for her. And I buy that chemistry almost immediately between the two of them, the like father-daughter.
So good.
Yeah. Then Snyder enters, they cover for Sheila. Sheila enters. I do like that she asked Buffy, did you really burn down one building? And she's like, not exactly one.
Cool.
We cut to the bronze. I love that Willow and Buffy are studying at the bronze because that makes no sense. Like, like go to one of your houses to study.
Right.
Xander gets them to dance, and then we see that Spike is watching her. He sends out another vampire, one of the Anointed One's vampires, to go bite someone.
We get the nice Slayer, Slayee.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Terrible, wonderful one-liners. I love them.
I love that shit so much. And I even think the fight scene with Buffy and this vampire is good. She does like a weird kick when she's on the ground where she kicks his head, and I like that.
I like when he throws her against the garage door.
Yeah.
Like, that's great. I think it's really interesting that Spike, because I heard James Marsters discuss this on your show, where
Mhm.
he was he's playing Spike sexually from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Sure.
So even when he's like walking across the bronze and sees Buffy for the first time, that is very sexual. That is an extremely sexual scene.
I mean, also, Kat, he is very hot. So, like, there's also.
So hot. He's so pretty.
So you and I might be a little biased because it is like he's just hot. He's just so hot.
But yeah, I know. But I will say this: it's like I kind of look at all of like the nondescript vampires on Buffy the Vampire Slayer. They are the stormtroopers of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. It's just too easy to kill them. Even like Xander can kill them. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
But so and it's kind of rare that we actually get to know any of the vampires. I think we get to know 4 or 5 maybe.
Yeah.
Just a few, yeah. I really like the actor playing the one that she kills in the alley, though. Like, he's actually one of my favorite faceless vampires that we don't care about. But
there's one that looks just like Adam Driver if he were a vampire in this episode.
I know the one you're talking about. Yep.
Yeah!
That's so specific. I don't actually know which one.
The longer face. Yeah.
You'll know. Yeah, go back and watch it. You'll know.
All right. I do like the bit of when Buffy's like, go get me a steak, and we see Xander going through a purse, and he like freaks out because he pulls out a tampon.
I know. Ew, gross, women.
Right, yeah. Then there's another one, I forget where it is, but later on in the episode where there's a comment about, it's Cordelia with Willow, and she's like talking about being on her period, and Willow's like, get an aspirin or whatever. Those felt, I don't know, you can decide, Kat, whether it felt authentic to you, but those felt very man writing for female characters for me. I wasn't as into those.
100%, but it was also, what year was it?
Right. It was the 90s, yeah.
90s.
I always take that into account. Do I like how many times Spike says bitch?
Right, yeah.
He's my most favorite character of all time now, and I do not like that. But I let it slide.
Right, because it's like there's a lot of things that are like, I will say, of shows that came out, this doesn't feel as dated as some of them, but
That's fair.
there still is a lot of shit that
but
Xander's whole brand of humor is the 90s in ways that irritate me more than they should.
No. Xander is no. But I will say that, like, oh God, there's one thing that is super, super, super dated and problematic and very racist that Spike says in
yes.
Oh, it's bad. It is bad.
And it's like the only black person, the only person of color in like the whole episode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's fucking rough. And like the fact that like, we get maybe 2 black characters, like all of them die. Like, yeah, the show is very white.
It's a very white show.
Yeah. Again, like very much a product of its time. Like,
yes.
I remember when we had J. August Richards on, he actually said that he was cast because the WB put out, like, all of our shows have to have at least one, like, main character that's a person of color. And that was, like, why they created Gunn. But, so, she stakes that vampire. She has her first encounter with Spike. And Kat, what does he tell her?
Nice work. Love. Nice work. Love. Who are you? Oh, God. I'll see you Saturday.
Yeah.
What happens on Saturday? I kill you.
Yeah.
It's such a good, and I love that, like, okay, first of all, Spike is smart because he's not fighting her himself. He's watching to see how she fights.
Yeah.
And then he creeps out from the shadows. He doesn't get anywhere near her. And his stance is such that you can tell he's going to run at any chance if she approaches him, because he's trying to be cool, but he looks very awkward in the way he's standing. Like almost like he's standing at an angle if you watch. And I think that that's really interesting. I don't know if that's because he had to stand that way to get a certain shot, but to me it felt like a choice. And I just really love that. I also think it's interesting because this happens so many times throughout the series. I even wrote a song about it, just a cute little TikTok. You didn't kill him, and now he's your problem at Spike. Because, like, Buffy has many chances to kill him, and she doesn't. He's the villain that that week after week, she just lets him get away. Like at the end of Halloween,
Right, yeah.
she just lets him run away.
I just rewatched that episode the other day, and I was like, wait, why doesn't she kill
No
him?
reason,
Go. And at the end of this episode, once Buffy's mom, I guess
Right.
Buffy wasn't trying to like reveal herself to her mother.
The case could be made for that one, but I feel like the rest of them, it's like, why didn't you kill him?
Why didn't she kill him? I mean, I'm glad you didn't, but
Right, yeah.
Right. Bad choices make good stories.
because if he's hot, it's okay.
Yeah, then I get it, girl. Like, I understand. So then we cut to Sheila, and Spike grabs her. He brings her to Drusilla. I forgot that we meet Miss Edith a million times.
This is also the introduction of Miss Edith.
Well, can I just say I love the origin story you gave Miss Edith. It's so good.
Shit. Yes. So, I don't believe you've read it yet, Ian. So no spoilers.
I don't mind a spoiler if you want to tell the story.
Well, I won't give to it. It's not fully revealed toward the end of of Bloody Fool for Love. But yes,
People have to read the book.
I did give an origin story for Miss Edith because I love Miss Edith. I love that she continues making appearances throughout the series.
Yes. It's such a weird staple, but it is. It's a staple. Like,
yeah.
And the way that she carefully picks the doll up and rotates it.
Yes.
It's a very tactile thing that I just loved.
Yes, because she speaks out of turn, so she will have no cakes today. Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
She doesn't get to watch.
She's so good.
And I love that, like, she's like, I'm not hungry. And Spike's like, you need to eat. And then we see that Sheila's.
I love the sweetness of that, where you get Sheila hanging out in the background and then, just promise me one thing, love. Eat something.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, he's being nice as he feeds this torture victim to his girlfriend.
Hey, where'd you go?
Oh my God, yeah.
There's a really really cool scene right there when she's about to eat Sheila, because like the camera shows Drusilla as regular human, and then the camera cuts away, and when the camera cuts back, Drusilla is a vampire, and it's like that is brilliant.
Yeah, I do really like that. And like, I don't know if it was because they weren't good at doing the turn yet, but I think it's more effective, right? Than like,
it's so much more effective than the bad CGI of Spike turning his head.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's way better.
So we cut to school. Buffy has made the punch. I like the thing I liked is that we allow Buffy to be sometimes a little like ditzy, because I relate to that.
Sure, her origin, yeah.
Right, and Willow's like, did she add sugar? And we see her taste it. She's like, oh, it's fine. It's great. Like,
and then later, Cordelia, you should have some punch.
Joyce shows up. They are trying to keep Joyce away from Snyder, away from all the teachers, which again, I'm like, why would all the rest of the teachers hate her?
I also have to point out, like, from a teacher's perspective, this is a 3-hour parent night for some reason. And like, they literally show us the hours passing, in which all of the parents are just like hanging out, mingling, like it's an awkward middle school party. Like, the people writing this one clearly had no idea what a parent night might look like and what schools are like. So that was weird.
But also, it's so weird to me. 2.5 hours pass, and supposedly Willow has been walking Joyce around, and she hasn't talked to any of the teachers.
Yeah, 2.5 hours of just bouncing around the school. Yeah, super weird.
And they made that choice. They wanted to show us it was 2.5 hours. So weird.
Yeah.
I do love that Cordelia's like, is that your mom? That's a woman who knows how to moisturize. I do like that line.
Right, yes.
Right.
And then what is it? Snyder comes over and he's like, they finally meet. And he's like, we need to have a talk.
Yes.
And then what happens, Will?
So they do finally get a chance to meet and have their talk. I love Armin Shimmerman. Like, he's delightful as an actor, because you do kind of hate him. So we don't know what he said, but you've gotten the fact that he's given away that her daughter is being obnoxious. And at this point, she has tried to claim that her mother doesn't speak a word of English, and he's giving her like the eyes, like, I know. But then you do finally get, weirdly, he's like turning off lights at the far end of the hallway.
Right,
yeah. That was never clear to me as to why he's doing that, but it does create the nice like ambiance for the vampires to bust in. And so then we finally get the climactic, like, things are going down moment in the show.
Yeah. And Spike and the vampires crash through the window. And I almost feel like this is also a good character beat of Spike saying, I hate waiting, so I'm going to do it now. Right? Because that tracks for him, right?
Yeah. I don't remember. Had they established at this point that vampires can enter any public space? Because there was like a back and forth about like the spaces that they need permission to enter and not. And Angel says some things that get retconned later, and it's just like maybe he was lying because, I don't know, we'll give an excuse for why it works.
We only get, especially going through Angel season 1, they really are fast and loose with the rules.
Super fast and loose.
Yeah.
And Angel is a liar.
That's true. They also, like, some supernatural creatures do have the power to like need permission and others don't. And there's a little...
But in Passion, he does say that there's like the sign in the school, like, all ye who seek knowledge.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, so there was kind of a blanket welcome they gave to the school.
Yeah.
All right.
And that's something they are slightly consistent with, that like if there's a welcome, whatever that,
welcome mat or whatever. Yeah.
So they bust through, and I actually like love the like separations. I like Cordelia and Willow having to be together. I love when they pair off characters.
Yeah.
Also, I like seeing Willow be like the badass one, right? Like,
the vampire with Cordelia, she's
the vampire grabs Cordelia and she gets like that big bust and smacks it over the head. I was like, good for you.
Can I say though, and this is going all the way to season 7 when Buffy keeps saying that Spike is our strongest warrior. Spike is thwarted by a plastic chair.
Yeah.
I want to just point that out.
We watch vampires like rip stone out of a wall and stuff, and yet they can't shoulder their way through a school door during this scene. Yeah, there's some just interesting choices.
They're also supposed to have really great hearing, and there's that one vampire who's got his back towards Buffy, and she's making all kinds of noise. And she's just sneaking up on him like, turn around, can't you hear what's going on?
Another thing the show is not so consistent about is the strength.
Right.
Like, we just recorded, for the last Angel episode we recorded for was Eternity. And there's this, like, the actress that he's, like, trying to save, like, it's only, like, regular dudes that are, like, we learn later, it's stuntmen that are attacking her. And he has, like, trouble fighting them when, like, in other scenes, he'll take down, like, 5 demons at once. And, like, a human should not be stronger than a demon.
Yeah.
What is it called? Hell math?
Right, yeah.
I want to know why in Angel, vampires can pretty much fly. They can't in Buffy.
Yes.
Narrative convenience.
I do like the flying, but I
love the flying.
It's weird out of nowhere added on. But so then Buffy saves her mom and Snyder and some other teachers. They like go into a classroom. Giles, Jenny, and Xander go in the library. Yeah, I think, well, the show is never that well lit in these first 2 seasons. Season 2, they get better as it goes along.
Yeah, it's really grainy.
But I do like it being all dark. Like, I do think that works for, like, the chaos. Mm-hmm. And I was wondering what you two thought. Did that work for you, or was it just, like, too annoying to see everyone?
No, I think, again, because a lot of this one felt just a little rough in the ways that the first few seasons do. I think the darkness really helps to shade some of that. It allows for the sort of willing suspension of disbelief to kick in a little bit more, so that you're like, sure, things were clearly hard and difficult and people were fighting. I don't need to notice that punch didn't come anywhere close to landing. Sure, why not?
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree. I think the darkness is really cool, and it adds to like the horror element. It makes it scarier. Yes, it's like when you're watching a horror film from the 80s and everything's really smoky. So I really appreciate that. There's one scene where it's the first scene where Joyce and Principal Snyder and the 2 other people, they're all in that room. They've barricaded themselves, and it's really cool camera work because it goes from one person saying a line to the next person to the next person. As they're saying the line, they're turning and the camera's panning out. So it's like boom, line, and it's just it's really cool the way they do that. But I think it is really cool to see the graininess that you get from something not being well lit and the camera's like doing its best, but it's it's overcompensating on missing information, material, whatever you call it.
Yeah.
But I love it. And I wrote down that what's crazy to me is that like Spike's character arc throughout the 7 seasons, or really the 6 seasons, is incredible.
Mhm.
And by the time I finished watching season 7, and I'm not even going to talk about season 5 of Angel because I feel like he just becomes a character of himself, but he really does. But going back and rewatching all of the seasons, it's like Spike is a complete stranger. And when you see him in this first episode, he's horrifying.
Yeah.
When he's walking along the halls,
Yeah.
it's creepy because there's like the way they shoot it. There's no music. It's
Yeah.
dark. He's a vampire.
Someone's in the ceiling.
Yeah.
So good.
I love also that they did a nice job with him throughout of playing up that like cliche creepiness with his ludicrous. So that you get the like do we really need weapons for this? I just like them. They make me feel all manly. Like you get those like nice little like jokey moments. And then it'll be late season 4, maybe early. It must have been the start of season 5, right before he gets shipped, where we get him coming back in eventually, and you expect the same kind of cliches like you saw in this episode, where he's like on the bluff overlooking the street, and he's like, the big bad is back, and this time it's. And then instead of getting the like this time it's personal like cliche moment, you get him getting tased and falling down, and it's so perfect because they've set it up in this episode that you expect him to be like this all the time. So whenever he's not, or he trips over a planter or whatever, it's great. Yeah,
and like, yes, a thing that I do love about the first 2 seasons, I would say by season 3 they mostly drop it, is that they still try to incorporate a lot of horror elements into the show.
Yeah, you get the black and white, like the blinds coming in with Joyce in the principal scene. It looks very noir. It looks very horror. Yeah,
and like I do like it, and I do think, I mean, none of us are like having nightmares about it, but I do think it works in like making it a little bit more heightened in like the like, oh shit, these people might die or something like that, right? And then we do get episodes like Hush and Conversations with Dead People that are definitely like
so good.
are very horror, but for the most part, I do think they mostly drop the horror element.
They're clearly very aware of their tropes, like they're aware of their genre. We even get the line, I think it's in this episode, you get the line where Angel first meets up with Spike, and he says, people are still falling for that Anne Rice routine, and you're like, yeah, this is the brooding vampire trope that we're used to.
Yeah, and like, so Giles sends. I love that. Suddenly Giles like, oh, there's a back exit, blah 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 blah, and it's fine. And Xander gets out, like, sure, fine, because then like 2 seconds later, we see that other teacher try to get out through the window and immediately getting eaten.
Yeah,
right.
But I do like the moment where Snyder and Buffy kind of go off face to face, where he's like, you don't tell me what to do, and she's like, actually, I do. I will keep you alive, and like. That is the confidence that that makes me love Buffy. Like I love
so much,
right? Like I know, like I've had a few people be like, I don't know. It feels. I'm like, but especially back then, we didn't have a lot of heroes, let alone like women who on TV who could like that were like this. And I don't know. It's like Baby Gay me just like loved this shit.
It's a big deal,
right?
It's a big deal. I mean, because I don't know. It's crazy to me. Like as a cisgendered woman, we've come a long ways in 5 years, in 10 years, and we are progressing. Some things are happening to push us back, obviously, but like TV and movies are really moving forward, and it's crazy to think how long ago it was, like how short of a time it was that we didn't have this. That we didn't have Buffy, that it was okay to call somebody a bitch on television, and it wasn't really even considered that big of a deal. Right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't take it for granted, but I do forget sometimes. So I love Buffy.
Yeah. Honestly, I think some of the start of it was playing with the fact that she is, Buffy, that she is a cheerleader, that she is exactly who you expect to run up the stairs and get killed in the first episode, and that it was that character. Like we have seen, like we have Ripley in the Alien movies prior to this. Speaking of using the word bitch in a cool way, that was get away from her, you bitch. Right?
Yeah.
We get those moments but in women that we would, like Ripley was originally literally written as a man,
Right.
and then they cast a female lead. Whereas this one is written as that cliche. She is written as the woman you expect to die, and she kicks ass.
Yeah. So we get Buffy argues with that, and then she goes up into the roof, which is very Die Hard.
Yep.
And it's something also that I like, that she's dressed in these like bright, cute colors, and she's like not afraid to like just jump into the ceiling and get super fucking dirty and go, beat up the vampires.
They dirty her up by the end of it too. Like when she drops down in front of Giles, she's just covered in dust and muck. Yeah.
And like, I love that. So she crawls through. What is it? Just she falls through in the library first, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I do like you said, we get Giles. He's like, I have to help her. She's my Slayer.
Yeah.
And Jenny's kind of like, well, Jenny's not wrong though, right? Like, oh, if you go out there, you're probably just going to die. Like, maybe don't.
But then I appreciate that she does like, okay, do what you got to do by the end of that one. Like she's not constantly the nag.
We get the trope of so-and-so. What? Be safe.
yes.
Take care.
We also do get, I forgot when they first, I think Joyce says something like, was there something wrong with their faces? And Snyder immediately goes, PCP, gang.
Yep.
And I like that we do like so early on get, oh no, he does know and he's covered. I kind of love that. And I also love that it's not like, he's not a demon. He's just an asshole, right? Like
a smug, sassy golem.
Yeah, like, and I like that they kept that as a through line, that like, yeah, he's a piece of shit, but he's just like, there's no like superpower, there's no supernatural. He's just an asshole. So Buffy, like, they concoct their plan. We see Xander come back with Angel, which is such a weird, like, when he's like, what's the plan? And Angel just like grabs him by the neck and pulls him.
Why didn't Angel just tell him?
Just tell him, right? Yeah, just fucking tell him.
I love also that by the end, you'll see, like, he asks, like, if he had bit me, what would you have done? He would have been like, I would have found out if he was buying it. Like, he's like, he would 100% have watched Xander die in order to get what he needed to know. I like that.
That's fine. We all feel that way, honestly.
Right.
But so she is like in the hallways creeping around. We see Sheila come up behind her. And Kat, what happens?
Something really fucking cool. There is axe that goes into a poster of a man that's missing a leg, and the axe smashes into the guy with the missing leg. That's really cool.
I didn't even notice that.
I didn't catch that detail either. That's great.
You watch the episode enough, you will see it. Sheila's a vampire, and she's about to axe Buffy, and then I guess it's Giles who is screaming from the porthole window in the library, Buffy, watch out! Yeah, and she turns and she axes Sheila, and still, of all of that commotion and noise, the vampire who has his back turned doesn't do anything. Convenient.
It's very video game logic. Like, she wasn't in aggro range yet, so it's fine.
Right.
And then we get what Buffy ushers out her mom and Snyder, right?
Yeah.
We get Xander and Angel, and that's when we get his encounter with Spike, where Spike does say like, Will, correct me on, the thing I was trying to think is, where was the last time Spike would have seen Angel? Like, do we know exactly the last time Spike would have seen Angel at this point?
Yeah, I mean, the last time on screen that he would have seen him would have been around when they sort of split up around the turn of the century, but there are lots of other times when they do cross over, at least in mention, although we don't see it. So we get things like they're going to meet on a U-boat during World War II. So there are moments. There's a whole I want to say fanged4.com, I think, has there's the fan sites have done a really good job of chronicling every teeny tiny subtle mention that somebody makes. So they do cross over a handful of times. It's not like they haven't seen each other since they split. But it's really sporadic little moments that are not, as far as I know, not on screen for the vast majority of them. It's I don't know the last time, but it has been decades at least since they would have seen each other.
So he wouldn't have seen Angel when he. But wait, wouldn't isn't in Fool for Love Angel's like already not like quote unquote bad?
Oh
So in Fool for Love, we see the flashback of him back in 1900, and at that point, when they go to kill, like when Spike kills his first Slayer, at that point the gypsy curse has, which again already a little, gypsy, not the right term to be using for Romani people, but the curse has been put on Angel that gives him back his soul. So even as Spike is reveling from having killed his first Slayer, Angel is like pretending to still be bad, but isn't. And that's the moment when we see Darla offers him a baby as like, hey, here you go, eat this baby in front of me. And Angel's like, I won't kill a baby, I'm running away. And they get mad at each other. So that's the moment when they stop being the four of them. And so we don't see them together as a quartet again after that point. So it has been 100 and almost 20 years since they've been like a team, but they do cross paths once or twice.
Okay, because I was trying to remember. I was like, but did they ever fight between this? Like I was trying to remember if he would have known Angel was like had a soul or good.
I think like they've gotten the sense that he's gone soft, that he's not willing to do the kinds of things that he used to do, but I don't think it's clear to him that he like what actually happened until Ken and Buffy.
Angel offers Xander's neck. Spike does not fall for it and knows that Angel is like tricking him, right?
Yeah,
he does the like, you were my sire, you were my Yoda, which I do like.
I love that moment.
My Yoda,
man. I forget how we transitioned from that to Spike fighting Buffy.
How does that even? Yeah, we do. She dusts another vampire in front of him. Yeah.
No. Okay, so they run out. There's a whole scuffle. And then Spike doesn't run out with them to chase Angel because he smells Buffy.
Yes. That's it. All the other vampires leave and he smells a
And he says, fee, fi, fo, fum.
And then doesn't rhyme at the end of that one. It's, I smell a little girl or something like that.
And I do like that this is their first fight. I like that he like punches the wall and he's like, that hurt.
Not as much as this is going to.
Yeah. And like, they're so good. And
so good.
Then we get the really big moment of, he has that nail at the board and Kat who knocked Spike over.
Joyce.
Yes.
With an axe. You stay the hell away from my daughter.
Right.
And Will, you mentioned Ripley earlier, and I really feel like this is like right? Like I really feel like it was like kind of a like wink to Ripley, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Because like Ripley's also, it's not saving her daughter, but it's like she's saving a child from the alien queen. And like I fucking love this moment. And I really, really wish we had gotten just a few more like this. Like we never see Joyce like fight again.
No. We get better moments with her later, but this is her first and only like fighting scene.
Yeah.
It's badass. I love that Spike, when she hits him with the axe, Spike falling to the ground is in slow motion.
Yeah.
Which is such a cool scene.
Yeah.
And that
because this is the climax,
Yeah, but it feels so cinematic to me.
Yeah.
And it makes the reveal more fun, right? That it's like her fucking mom.
Yeah.
And like, we talked about how like Joyce was being too hard on her, but I like that Joyce is still like, no, that's my fucking daughter. Like, absolutely
and so
not.
it's still in character, but you're getting that she's a mama bear, like that she wants to protect her daughter in the same ways that she wanted to protect her by grounding her for being a bad student. She wants to protect her from being physically hurt. Yeah,
right. And then Spike yells "women" and runs off.
Right.
What's my weakness? Women.
Yeah. No, and I love also, you'll get the callback to this moment when we finally do see Spike, like, being welcomed into the house.
Yeah.
And you get her like, don't I know you? Yeah, you hit me over the head with an axe that one time. Remember? Stay away from my daughter. And they're like, oh, yeah, right. Just this casual beat.
I love that moment.
Yes.
Oh, I love Spike and Joyce together.
I know, and they're watching Passions together.
She's got the little marshmallows.
It's so sweet. Yeah.
Spike runs off, and that's kind of, the vampires have all run out. We see Snyder talking to the police, and he's doing where we learn even more of like how much he knows. And he even says, right? He even says, like, what do you want to do? Tell them the truth?
Yeah.
Insinuating that he knows they're vampires, right?
Right. Gangs and drugs. Okay.
Yeah. And I don't know. I just, there's something about that I do really like, that I think it's after Bad Eggs. I thought it was this episode, but I think it's at the end of Bad Eggs when he's like, tell the mayor, like,
right,
we got it under control or whatever. And, we don't ever see the mayor till season 3. Like in season 2, that's not even, there's no plot there. It's just,
they're just bit by bit dropping these larger pieces. Yeah.
I love how they set that up.
Yeah. Right. I think that's like so good. And so we get the like wrap up. And I do like that Willow and Cordelia are still hiding in the utility closet. We get Joyce kind of tells her daughter that she's proud of her, right?
Yeah. And that she's not in trouble, even though she's been effing up. Yeah.
And then our last moment is what does Spike do in the last moment, Kat?
Oh my god. It's very cute the way that James Marsters plays this, because like, first of all, he shows humility towards Drew, like, which is genuine. Yeah. And then he goes to grovel to the Anointed One and those vampires. And you think for a second that he's going to like bow down to them. And he's like, who am I kidding? I would have done it just like this. And you know what else I would have done? And he grabs the Anointed and throws him in a cage and lifts him up and burns him. And then he and Drew, in a beautiful shot, dance away together to that creepy ass music while it shows the cage sizzling in the sun.
Dust coming down. Yes.
So good.
I think, I love that moment. Yeah, I think it's so good.
So good.
And again, it was a good way for them to wrap up the Anointed One. Like, they really just didn't need to show him, but I appreciate that they did, and they like gave Spike a cool moment of like, I'm gonna get rid of this one. I don't fucking care.
Yep.
And it kind of tells us, I really feel, the thing I think about a lot of Buffy characters, and like Spike included, but like I think most of them, they are mostly fully formed. Like they do feel well thought out when they're on screen. And I really like that, And like with people like Cordelia and Giles, like their evolution feels organic rather than just like, we're going to rewrite this character.
Right.
And that's what I really like about this show is like, that first, everyone's like, I think maybe Anya's the only one that's not, but that's just, she's really just the demon and we don't see her do much else. But even like when she's with Cordelia in her first episode, she's still like kind of funny. I love that. Okay, we are at the end here. Kat, what was your favorite scene?
Oh my God. Probably Spike's entrance.
Yeah,
if I'm being honest. There's another little mini scene where Angel and Buffy are she's like calling him out, like, Angel, how come you didn't show up at the Bronze last night? Oh, you said you might be there. I was playing cool. Come on. And then Willow points out, she's like, wow, you've been dating for 200 years. Even if you, and she's like, that's like 400 dates. And Angel and Buffy look at her and she goes, I love, she points, the camera just goes to Willow patting the mace and going, hey, why do they call it a mace?
Yes.
Tap,
Good. That is a really good scene. I do like that. It made me like, I forgot about that scene when I was rewatching it, and I did laugh out loud.
Yeah.
Will, what was your favorite scene?
I want to say it was Spike and Drew's first moments because they're so good, and then also that Miss Edith scene. Like every moment that they're on screen together is absolutely amazing. But I gotta go with the Joyce climax on this one. Like it really did. I liked that moment because it actually changed a dynamic moving forward. Like it was important in the way that the character arcs were important. And it was important both for Spike and, of course, for Joyce and her mom, or Buffy and her mom.
Yeah.
So, like, I like that was the most satisfying moment there. But literally every time that we see Marsters and Landau on screen together is just absolute liquid fire.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna. I also have two. It's Joyce hitting Spike with the axe, and then Spike's intro running over the Sunnydale sign. I just both so good.
So good.
What was your favorite outfit, Kat?
Oh my God. Well, okay. Besides Spike's outfit, his iconic outfit, which by the way, I was able to piece together from just going to Goodwill.
Oh, I love that.
I did manage to find a leather jacket for like $35 on Poshmark, and I had to like cut it up the back so that it flies around more. But it's gonna be great. But I will say, God, Buffy's little white wrap skirt that she wears at the freaking faculty meet, or like the parent teacher night.
Yeah.
The little wrap skirt with her little white Mary Janes, and it's just so 90s, and I just love it so much. And I appreciate it because, once she graduates high school, she stops wearing those tiny little skirts and dresses.
Yeah.
She just starts wearing, it's frumpy. They start dressing her really frumpy. Like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm a very girly girl, but and I appreciate the fact, and also let me say, as a feminist, I really appreciate the fact that they do start dressing her in like pants and stuff, and that they're not trying to sexualize Buffy anymore. I really do love that. I also do appreciate the fact that Spike seems to only be sexually and romantically interested in her when she does start wearing the giant coats,
right?
and not when she's wearing the tiny little skirts. I do appreciate that. Well, I have to give one thing away about my show is that when our Buffy comes out to do her burlesque number, she's going to come out wearing a giant coat, and then she's going to strip, and she's going to be wearing another coat underneath. and then she'll actually, But yeah, the white skirt. My God, the white skirt, so good.
Will, what was your favorite outfit?
Oh, it's got to be Spike's. I mean, like if you go to a Comic-Con, you could have like a Buffy and Spike cosplayers, and someone could be wearing literally the exact same clothes. They could have the white skirt and the green top and the little purple whatever, and they could have like literally the exact same clothes and be a doppelganger for Sarah Michelle Gellar, and people would still not realize that they're in a cosplay. Whereas you get somebody, like you said, like you could go to Goodwill and find a very dark red shirt, a light red overshirt, and a black coat, and like throw some bottle blonde on that, and it's like you could be a completely opposite body type, and it's Spike. Like it's just it became the iconic Spike look. So I love that look for him. He does occasionally wear like the Hawaiian tees and stuff, and that's fun too. But this, of course, was his look.
I remember I went to a like drag once more with feeling show forever ago, and there was this like very hot lesbian as Spike, and I went up there and I was like, "You look great as Spike. Like I have a crush on you."
It's been strange. Have you seen the photos of me online as Spike?
Okay, it's good.
My God. Okay, so my friend Polly Amberos, who's an amazing drag artist, she did my makeup for that shoot. I will not be able to. That was an hour worth of makeup. I won't be able. I'm gonna have like 15 minutes to change my characters backstage. But all day when I was walking around like that, because I've never. I'll do drag. I will go and sing and do drag brunches and stuff like that. But I've never done drag king stuff.
Okay.
As much as I love Spike, I love him to pieces, and I think I'm really going to enjoy being him on stage. I did not like being like that, so masculine looking. But like people, like I posted the picture on my personal Facebook account, and my friends were all like, "Oh my God, you look so hot! Like I'm really digging this." And I'm like, "No." I had a burlesque friend like, "Will you please come and do drag as Spike at my burlesque show?" And I'm like, "I don't want this to be a thing. Like I want to fuck Spike. I don't want to
be him. Yeah,
I want to be him. This is weird."
Listen, the problem I have as a gay man. I mean, like, do I want to be him or do I want to fuck him? My favorite outfit is actually. I feel like Spike's outfit is such a staple that like I do love it, but it's just like he wears it all the time, and that's like this, yeah. I think I really like Cordelia wears this like black mini dress with like the red flower. Good. I think it looks so cute. And I mean, she's gorgeous, so she wears things well. But I just really like that dress on her. And she has really great hair. And she even like
always
her hair looks thick even when it's just like up. So I think she looks great.
She's so gorgeous.
Right. What grade do we give this episode, Will? You're the teacher here. You give us the first grade.
Oh, it was hard because, like, if I'm grading just on, like, shows that you need to watch and shows that you can skip, this one would be in the like, you need this one in order to watch the series. But overall, I went down to a B on this one. I think weighing everything, it's a cornerstone episode, great one-liners, introduces lots of my favorite elements. But compared to those later seasons, it's just not as refined. Like, nothing terrible. It's just a little clumsier than it's going to be. So B for me.
That's fair. Kat?
Yeah, I think Will's right, and that, like, other episodes further on in the series are so much better if you're comparing that. I would give it an A-. Okay. Just because I do think it's a really, really great episode, and I think there's so many incredible, iconic scenes. And you're right, Will, you do have to watch this episode. This is an origin episode, right?
Yeah, essential.
Like, if you're going to compare it, my favorite episode is Fool for Love. So I love anytime you put Spike in an origins, like in a back, which is why I love your book so much. I'm all for it. So compared to, like, episodes like that, but it's still really good. So A-.
Yeah. It's always hard with Buffy episodes because, right, like, even like a lesser episode of Buffy is still better than a lot of other television.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Yes.
And, like, but then also you gotta be like, but there's so many better episodes, but this episode's still good. And it's like, so yeah, I landed on B+. I was like on the fence with A-, B+, because it's like, this is a really good episode, but there are so many more that are like a zillion times better, but that doesn't mean this one is bad, right? So, all right. Well, thank you both for joining me.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah.
This was ridiculously fun.
And thank you all for listening. If you like Slayerfest 98, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and anywhere else you get your podcasts. If you want to support us on Patreon, it would be much appreciated. We are finishing up Harley Quinn Season 2 over there and finishing up What If Season 1. And then we'll be moving on to Harley Quinn Season 3. You can find us on social media at SlayerFestX98. You can find me at IanXCarlos. Kat, where can everyone find you and get tickets to your show?
Yeah. So I am Twitter and Instagram and all that, Kat Robichaud, spelled phonetically with a K. And if you want to follow us, we are Kat Robichaud's Misfit Cabaret, or Misfit Cabaret, and it's krmisfitcabaret.com. And it's October 7th to 22nd. And it's going to be absolutely fantastic. We have drag, we have burlesque, we have fight choreography, we have aerial, and live music. A phenomenal band.
By aerial, are like people on wires, or are they doing like ribbon show? What kind of aerial are you doing?
Oh, so for this particular show, it's chain aerial. Ooh. We have their name is Dragonessa, and they are doing Nandor from What We Do in the Shadows.
Oh my God, I love that.
And we'll be performing You're Dead, Yeah, and they are going to, the cool thing about their chain aerial is that they actually hang by their teeth.
What?
Holy shit.
Yeah. So it's very
wild. Oh my God. I wish I were down there. That sounds like an amazing show.
We film every single show professionally. Cool. And so we will live stream this on Stellar Tickets, I think, the week of Halloween.
Oh, nice,
very cool.
Nice.
Very cool.
That's a good idea. And Will, where can everyone find you and buy your books?
Yeah, you can find Bloody Fool for Love, as well as any of my other. I also did the Jacoby series and a middle grade Oddmeyer series. Pretty much anywhere books are sold. I know in your shop in a Barnes and Noble, or just in. I always like to support your local indie. Check in with them. Ask them to order things. Indies love doing that. And you can find me on Twitter. I'm at Will O the Words. And or my WordPress that I don't update nearly often enough is rwillritter.wordpress.com.
And Will, do you not have Instagram?
I technically have an Instagram. I have never, ever, ever, ever updated, so not even worth it.
I was trying to find you to tag you in it earlier, and I was like, I can't fucking find him. How did I ask him what it is?
Nothing. I know. I should.
Well, thank you both so much. And also, we have a Halloween show coming up in New York City. I have the link in the body of this post, wherever you're downloading the episode or listening to the episode. You can find the link to the tickets on Eventbrite. It will be at Stonewall in New York City on October 29th. It'll be a live reading of the season 2 Halloween episode. So I hope to see anyone there who wants to come, and we'll see you all next time. Bye.
Bye.